Hello everyone, I'm finally back with a new video. I apologize for such a hiatus, but sometimes life just happens. I've been wanting to film a makeup video again for a while, but I couldn't conjure up anything I could really talk about. But since it's Pride Month, I figured I could do something special for that. Anyways, let's get on with it! I decided to do a makeup look based on the colors of the asexual pride flag, using black, white, gray, and purple. Black represents the absence of color, symbolizing the absence of sexual attraction or feelings. White represents allyship and non-asexuals who are in support of us in contrast. Gray represents those within our community that may feel that they're in between asexual and not asexual, such as demisexual, for example. And purple represents the community as a whole, and I'd like to think that it adds a nice, non-neutral color to the flag that makes the overall design more inviting, much like how a community should be, right? I feel that during Pride Month, those of us who are asexuals often don't get a whole lot of representation, or at least proper representation in media. Most people don't even know that we exist in the first place, which makes interacting with certain people very bizarre. Being young, older folks might say, "You'll grow out of it," or "It's just a phase." But on the contrary, some will say, "Good, I'm glad you're not doing those kinds of things, unlike most people your age." People have this misconception it makes you pure and innocent, which couldn't be further from the truth, honestly. Even some close friends have told me, "You're lucky that you're asexual, you don't have to deal with unnecessary clutter in your brain, and you can focus on important things." It made me laugh a bit when I heard it, because for so much of my early teen years, I tried to force myself to think about those kinds of things as a means of suppressing my true self. I wanted to be quote-unquote normal. Especially with being queer, often the media represents queer guys as being hypersexual or even promiscuous, which has never described me at all, not even in the slightest. Additionally, it's already taboo being a part of the LGBTQ community. Although times are changing and acceptance is being achieved more and more, it doesn't mean that there are still so many misconceptions about the asexual and aromantic community, and how everything is a spectrum and how nuanced some of these things can be. Especially things like romantic attraction can be so hard to define without having exceptions, and how every person might experience being a part of the community differently. Hence why we have labels such as demi-romantic, which is what I identify with. Even coming to terms with being on the aromantic spectrum bothered me a lot. I felt like I was broken, like something was inherently wrong with me. Why is it difficult for me to like people? But it's just a part of who I am, and it doesn't take away from my validity as a gay person, and the queer community in general. Sometimes the fire comes from within the building, which hurts so much more. Being told that there must be something wrong with you to not feel certain attractions to someone that you like, from fellow queer people. It really makes you lose your sense of belonging, especially in a community that has historically taken so much pride in not putting people into boxes, when in reality we've just created a series of boxes that tend to not be inclusive of every experience at hand. The media doesn't help either, when some of the only things that come to people's mind when they think of an asexual person is someone who's either that unfortunate trope of a 30-year-old, like, nerdy virgin, or someone who's experienced extreme sexual trauma. People just can't seem to wrap their heads around the fact that people are just born this way. It's not inherently caused by trauma, or even just being quote-unquote undesirable. I feel it should be treated the same way as someone coming to terms with any other sexuality. Unfortunately, with being asexual, people just don't understand it. Understanding is partly why I'm making this video in the first place. I'm not sure if it's going to reach a whole bunch of people, but if it reaches enough, I hope it can enlighten some people who may not understand what it means to be asexual and a part of the aromantic spectrum. And sometimes it's difficult to ask people questions, as it can potentially make some of us really uncomfortable. But as long as you have good intentions, I can't speak on the entire behalf of the asexual community, but I can say most of us just want to be accepted, and sometimes acceptance requires a bit of education. Overall, ignorance often stems from just not being very knowledgeable on the subject. But staying true to who you are and taking pride in your identity is what matters most. Luckily, I have amazing friends, even some that are asexual or even both aromantic and asexual, who are great people in my life, people who aren't broken or anything of the sort. They're just normal people existing. I'm grateful for the people in my life that haven't judged me or told me that it's just a phase, because in some moments where I was feeling so frustrated with the fact that I feel uncomfortable with things that are deemed normal and certain jokes, boundaries, just overall things that just generally make me feel a sense of distaste are valid feelings. And I'm happy that there are people that respect my boundaries. I think that everyone deserves to feel that same sense of security, regardless of who they are, honestly. With this makeup look, while using all of the colors of the ace flag, I wanted to illustrate the idea of two ideas contrasting. One being the feeling of being broken or defected by drawing a large shatter along my forehead, much like a shatter in glass, which additionally adds to the feeling of being fragile and vulnerable. On the other hand, I wanted to depict acceptance and coming to love my identity with exaggerated black and white swirls along my face, showing how it's a process of ups and downs, but a worthy process nonetheless. I feel that the purple and the gray add a sense of fluidity and sort of blur the lines between everything, depicting the concept of a spectrum. Sort of message, I think that finding good representation and good role models in our community has made it far more possible for me to fully accept myself, albeit the representation is often really small and obscure. It still means a lot to me, and nonetheless, it still kind of keeps me going and feel like, hey, there's something out there, and I love supporting, indie creators and those kinds of things like that. So yeah. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the video. I have a couple other ideas lined up, so stay tuned. If you want to keep up with my work, make sure to follow my Instagram. Anyways, bye bye!